Welcome to Changing Beliefs. This is a webinar about coaching the heart. And I've just taken a few minutes and introduced. I have a new book coming out on coaching the heart. It's available now from Coach 22. See it on the PowerPoint to my left. I also listed a number of the trainings that we have coming up. You can see those on our calendar at meta-formation.com. So this webinar is essentially a continuation of the Coaching the Guardians of the Heart webinar. And in that one, I focused on how you identify a belief. For this one, we're going to repeat a little bit of that just to get a belief to work with, but we're going to spend most of our time on what are the tools for working with a belief as a coach. So if you want to go back and watch the Guardians one, the link is meta-formation.com/catalog.html. Or you can just go to the Meta-Formation website and there's a link on there you can follow. But meta-formation.com/catalog.html. And that webinar is free, and there's 3 or 4 others up there that sort of go with this one in the same theme. So all of that you can watch on demand. So I want to go back real quick and give you some basics about identity and how it forms, just for some context. So the idea is your identity realm is sort of who life has made you into, your beliefs, your wounds, your vows, your memories, your emotional memories, your values. It's sort of the nurture part of who you are. So identity and beliefs, since we're talking about beliefs, I'll focus there. Beliefs form when you have a powerful experience that touches one of those core desires. So if you want to be accepted by your friends, you're a teenager and you want people to like you, and you experience rejection, your desire is unmet. And so that powerful experience generates an emotional memory. And the emotional memory is just the feeling associated with the situation. So I got rejected by my friends and I feel this. Yeah. And those emotional memories are powerful and they motivate us to do something with them. So what we do is we create a belief system. The emotional memory lives in our emotional brain. In our rational brain, then we create a belief around this memory to explain it and tell us what to do with it. So if I got rejected by my friends and I'm hurt, I might choose to make a belief like, I'm not going to trust my heart to people because you just get hurt. That's a belief statement. And what happens is the next time a similar situation comes along where I might be rejected, my belief kicks in and I use it to protect myself. I'm not opening my heart here because I might get hurt. So it protects me from having my desire unmet. So that's how beliefs form and how they function. That once they're in there, they sort of function by, that's not on this one. Sorry. They function by, I guess we can use the guardians. These are the 2 guardians of the heart, beliefs and emotional memory. So later in life, if a situation happens where I might get rejected, first my emotional memory guardian crops up and says, whoa, danger, danger. You might get rejected here. And so your anxiety rises and you get afraid. And the emotion kicks your belief, the other guardian, into action. Your emotion says, what are we going to do? We're in trouble. And your belief says, well, you just protect your heart this way. So don't open up to this person. And then you act out of the belief system. So that's sort of how this thing forms. What I'm going to do in a minute here is coach Carissa down to a belief, and then we're going to work with it. So since I'm going to spend about 10 minutes on coaching this, I wanted to just review the process. This is in that Coaching the Guardians webinar. But what we'll do is we'll start with an emotion or a trigger experience. And then what we want to do, usually what people do with an experience as a coach, is they want an explanation. What happened? What were you doing? What were they doing? How did it affect you? And that sends us into our rational brain. What we're going to do is coach the emotional brain. So I want to identify the emotion, and then I want the person to be in that emotion and experience it. And often I'll use visualization for that and put you back into the situation. And then once you're in the emotion, the next question is, how did you want to respond to that feeling? And the reason for the response thing is the response is the belief that we're acting out of the belief we made to protect our heart when we respond. So that response points to the belief and it points to the desire. So if we want to find the desire at that point, we ask the desire question, what does this response give you? But if we want to get to the belief, which we're doing today, we ask, why did you feel that way or respond that way? And the why is the belief. And then what I like to do with people is have them create a belief statement. So we actually have a, I believe that blank. So we're working with something concrete. So that's the process right there. So I'm going to take Carissa and just walk through that process real quick. Welcome. Let me pull the camera back a little so we can see you. And scoot up. Otherwise you'll look really small. So we're going to get uncomfortably close here to be on camera at the same time. Carissa, do you want to tell them a little bit about who you are?
A little bit about who I am. I'm a coach, and I live here in Reading, and I'm also part of Tony's team at LMI, coordinating the intercessors for the events on the ground here that he does. And I'm an artist, creative, and I want to live from my heart, so that's part of why I'm here.
Great. Carissa is also our intercessor coordinator for Leadership Reformation. Real quick before we start, I sort of flew through a couple key models there at the beginning. Does anybody have a clarifying question about how beliefs form or this identifying beliefs process, something you just didn't understand before I start? Go ahead and type that in if you do. I can see who's typing from my screen too. Is anybody having trouble hearing me? Yeah, let's get this over here. Good reminder. I'm trying to talk loud. Okay. We use beliefs to protect our heart. Yes. The guardians are your belief and your emotional memory. So your emotional memory says, here's trouble, and your belief says, here's how we protect ourselves from it. So, give first PowerPoint. Did you not see the first one? The first one was just, do you mean that one? Anyway, these are the steps for forming identity. Is that the one you wanted, Vicki? Okay, so we're gonna, where does the Word of God come in our response to Jesus? Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Okay, so, you had a situation you wanted to talk about. Give us a real quick introduction to that.
Yeah, it was exploring some beliefs that I have around success. I noticed yesterday I've been working on some different aspects of my business that are kind of creative and a little bit ambiguous in nature because I'm still working on them, and went for a walk and caught myself thinking, when I have a successful business then, and just caught myself in that thinking, well, how could I be successful now, and or think of myself as successful now instead of kind of that constantly I'll be successful when type of thinking.
Okay. So what we're going to do is start with the emotional part of that. So when you're feeling that, when you're doing that, when I have a successful business, what emotion are you experiencing in those moments?
Well, I think there's part of it that is like a vision of what success will feel like, but there's also kind of a lot of.
Let me step back in that particular moment. When you were saying to yourself, when I have a successful business, you're taking your walk. In that moment, what were you feeling?
I think maybe more of like a sense of pressure around like how to get there, um, or not feeling like my work will be meaningful until something.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot of pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So say more about how do you experience pressure? Is it anxiety? Is it impending doom? Is it, what's
Yeah.
the
I think when I talk about pressure, or the way that I experience it is uh, kind of feelings of not good enough or not quite measuring up, which makes it difficult to create anything. But I think that's
Okay.
kind of the feeling is I'm always reaching for a sense of it being enough or good enough or something like that.
Okay. So we actually have two sort of emotions. One is the pressure and not good enough, and the other one you mentioned was, will my work be significant? Will it matter? So which of those is strongest in that situation? The pressure part or the does it matter significance part? Or you can pick whichever one you want to go down.
I mean, it all feels linked together to me. So do we have to separate it? Like, will it be more
talk
effective
more about
to?
the pressure things.
Yeah, pressure. Yeah.
Okay, so we have an emotion. Next, we want to talk about the response. So when you're in that feeling, you're feeling the pressure of it, that it's not yet. Will I be significant? Will I fail? How do you want to respond to the feeling? Run? Do you fight? Do you hide? What kind of?
Well,
Do you soldier on? What's the? Do you know? I'm just not sure you want to say. Or
Well, I mean, I'm growing in awareness, so I'm learning to question that. But my more knee-jerk response is to avoid and then avoid but keep myself under the pressure. So I think about everything I think that I should be doing or all the ways I'm not measuring up, but I don't look at it long enough to figure out what to do about it or what to actually.
Okay.
So I hide. I guess that's hiding.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting for a couple reasons. One is I put myself in the uncomfortable place and then I act to ensure that I stay there.
Totally. That's
which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what emotional beliefs are like. So this will be fun. So so if we were going to go to the desire, the question we'd ask right now is, what does avoiding it give you? But we're going to go to the beliefs. So instead of asking, what does it give you? We're going to ask, why? Why would you choose to avoid it and still feel the pressure and have the worst of both worlds?
Right. Why do you choose to be miserable?
There's a reason you do what you do.
Yeah. Well, my initial awareness of like why I avoid it is because I'm afraid that I think I'm afraid that I don't know what to do. That's the feeling. I don't know what to do, and that scares me.
Okay.
So I think that's why I avoid or don't look at it.
Now look separately at the piece that I keep the pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Why do you keep the pressure on yourself instead of trying to escape that? What are you afraid would happen if you didn't keep the pressure on yourself?
I guess it's I what am I afraid would happen if I don't? I feel like it's something about responsibility. Like I don't know what to do, but I have to be responsible for it, or I know I'm responsible for it.
Right.
So
Tell you what, do a little experiment here.
okay.
Take that situation
Yeah.
and feel the feeling of it. I'm feeling like I don't know what to do. I want to avoid it.
Yeah.
And then just give yourself permission to not be responsible and avoid it for a minute.
Okay.
I don't have to do this. I don't. If it never happens, it's okay. Now, if you did that,
Yeah.
what are you afraid would happen if you just let yourself be an I and have fun in life?
Well, if I didn't have to be responsible and I could just avoid it and not look at it and not do anything with it, then I could just go have fun and not worry about it.
And if you didn't worry about it, what would happen?
I
You just
think
went and had fun.
I guess it feels like I would get in trouble.
Okay. Okay.
Which
All right.
yeah, I guess it feels like or I think that would be irresponsible, and if I'm irresponsible, I get in trouble, or something gets taken away from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's two different responses and there's two different beliefs there.
Mm-hmm.
With the avoidance thing, I don't know how to do it and I just want to get away from the icky feeling.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is there's something worse if I don't stay engaged, so I...
Yeah, so I kind of stay in the middle without any resolution.
Right. So take the second one, since we just talked about that.
Uh-huh.
If you were going to make that trouble thing into a belief statement,
okay,
what do you believe about avoiding it or about letting go of it or not being responsible for it?
Not being responsible for it. So the belief, around, like, if I just gave myself permission to avoid it and let it go and just have fun and not worry, not feel the pressure, then I'll get in trouble and be hurt. Okay. I guess.
All right.
Something will be taken away.
So there's one belief statement. I'm going to try more to talk into the mic. So back to the first one. Your response is, I don't know how to do it and I feel stuck, so I avoid. What do you believe there? In other words, avoidance solves the problem.
Avoidance solves the problem. Yeah.
What is it doing for you? I believe that if I avoid it,
it'll magically disappear. If I avoid it, well, I guess maybe it's something about avoiding is my way of being able to handle it. So there's some belief about I can't handle something, I think, or I won't be able to deal with the truth or deal with, like, if I acknowledge, does that?
Okay, so if I get stuck or I don't know what to do, I won't be able to handle whatever it is.
Yeah, if I really acknowledge that and step into it and ask for help or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, good. So there's two beliefs, and to this point, all we've been doing is getting down to what's there. So now we're going to use some tools to evaluate it, and some of these clearly come out of Scripture, and you'll see them. But the first tool I want to do is just to evaluate the belief. Usually when we have a belief, it's unspoken or unconscious, this kind of belief. And so we've never really evaluated it in the light of day. So a lot of what we're doing in the first part of this conversation is bringing to light what's going on inside of you. Because when things come to the light, they become light. The darkness, their beliefs, the juxtaposition of the two things that keep you in the worst possible position.
Yeah.
When it comes out in the light, it's like, why the heck am I doing that? And the light changes your approach to it. So that's the first part of this. So now we're going to evaluate. So take the first belief, which is the one about I can't handle it. When you just stand back and look at that, what do you think of it? Do you like it, not like it?
Well, I don't like how it feels. And I can see when I look at that, I can see how it keeps me disengaged, like from actually looking at what's going on. So I don't like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of where you learned that or where that comes from in your life? The I can't handle it, avoid response.
Well, I know that was like kind of like part of in my family there were certain things that we talked about and certain things that we didn't. So I can see where that would be like a learned behavior of like I learned what we look at and what we don't look at, kind of. So that makes sense to me when we're looking at it.
So this belief, is it something you want to keep or change?
It's something I'd like to change.
Okay. So that's the first tool, is evaluating the belief. So let's go to the second one, which is we want to take the belief and compare it to an objective source of truth. So, for instance, is it objectively true in that situation that you can't handle it?
No, objectively, it's not.
What would tell you that it's
not? Well, like I have some other examples where this has shown up, like in my life. Like one example is I used to experience this a lot related to my finances, where I would get scared about money. I wouldn't want to look at my bank account. There's all these places that I didn't want to look at. So and feeling the avoidance of that. And I've gotten freedom there, and now I can look at my finances and realize I can handle it and that I'm not alone. And so
you've already done it, and that proves you can do it.
And that proves that I've looked at something that I used to avoid, and I can handle it. So
good. So that's a good objective source of truth. Another place we could look at Scripture. If you were going to think of the clearest thing of what the Bible would speak to that belief that I can't handle it, what comes to your mind from Scripture?
A lot of what's been speaking to me lately is in the Psalms, how often it talks about God being a strong refuge, God being a source of safety. He is my safety. He's a shield around me. And that speaks to me like about who he is for me. And then so I feel like, okay, I'm safe with him, so I can look at anything and I'll be okay. That kind of.
Okay. Now, one of my key approaches in this kind of thing is when God has been speaking to the person in this area, I'm going to assume that God has a particular strategy in how he's speaking. And what strikes me as interesting about that is the refuge thing is you run to your refuge in times of trouble, but somehow that's different from avoiding. So what is the strategy of God saying, you have a fortress and a refuge, but it's different than the avoiding thing?
Yeah.
In other words, he could have,
Yeah.
the scriptures could have been, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens
Totally.
you, but he's speaking to you in a different way.
Yeah. When I think about how it feels to avoid and then how it feels to hear him talk about being my refuge, it's a different connection for me. Like when I'm avoiding, I'm not talking to him about it. I'm not asking for his help. I'm not feeling he's with me. Yeah. And when I experience him as a safe place, as a refuge, then I feel like we are in it together.
Okay, good. So there's a couple more tools, but I want to stop here for a minute and take some questions. And maybe just type in, two things. What have you seen that's significant to you or that you learned? And then the second one would be, what's your biggest question about this, or what would you want me to address? So far we've talked about evaluating beliefs and speaking truth to beliefs. What do you want to know about this? Or what is striking you about it so far? So everybody type at the same time. I really do think it's important for you as a coach that you believe in the work of God in the person's life. That if God is speaking to them, that's your cue of how he's working and he has a strategy. So that's something I'm really big on. Anybody, question or comment? Something that really struck you? Should we hum the Jeopardy theme or? Okay. All right. If you got a question, feel free and type it in, and I'll try to get to it here. But I want to go on and hit a couple other techniques. Yeah, if your screen is freezing up, it's probably your connection somehow or your bandwidth. I think you can turn off the video and try to just do the audio. That might help you. So let me do another technique here. When there's a belief and the person wants to change it, one thing I like to do is just have them ask Jesus, what do you want me to believe instead? So nice. Ask him a question like that. So and you can say, I believe that I can't handle it. Okay. But what do you want me to believe? Okay. Let's see what he says to you. Okay. So, Jesus, I believed that I can't handle looking at things that scare me, I guess. And what do you want me to believe? The picture that comes to me is of something he showed me recently of Jesus taking my hand and us walking through the middle of things together. So sometimes I feel like there's only two options and neither of them are good. I feel stuck, like it's that situation, like I don't know what to do. And that picture helps me experience him as he always has another option, and he's with me in it. Okay. Okay, so right there sounded like a good belief statement. Yeah. There's always another option, and he's with me in it. And he's with me in it. Yeah. Is that, if you were going to take that and make the belief statement out of it, would you word it like that? Would you change it a little bit? What would you say? Yeah, I would say that, and I would also say that I can handle anything because he's with me in it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the two bad options were either I flounder and feel like a failure, or I disconnect. Yeah. And the better option is I stay connected and I find something in him that lets me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's with me in it.
Okay.
That feels a lot better.
Good. Take a minute and let that sort of soak into you and feel it and let it touch your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus has this little saying, let these words sink into your ears, or some places translate it, let these words sink into your heart. And to me, this is the thing of when something touches a person, you want to camp on that a little bit and let it continue to touch you and not move on to the next thing, because that's an important moment.
Yeah. I feel like in letting that sink in right now, something I realized is something new I can do with that feeling of I don't know what to do. It is that picture of taking Jesus' hand um, and I hadn't thought of that before, but realizing that I do know what to do. Like when I feel that I don't know what to do, that's all. Like I know what to do now. I can just take his hand and so
I can go take a walk.
totally. That feels good.
Okay, good. So that's the thing of asking Jesus, and often really powerful statements or images come out. And the power of that too is then the new belief is rooted in a revelation and an experience of hearing God speak as opposed to just a rational thing. So it makes sense to your emotional brain. So let me go to number 4 here. And we sort of did this, the idea that we renounce the old belief and replace it with the new.
Yeah.
But you might want to just do it for the sake of the thing.
Yeah.
What are you renouncing today, and what are you putting in its place?
Okay.
And say it out loud to God.
Okay. So I'm renouncing the belief that that I have to avoid something. I have to avoid things that I don't know what to do with or that scare me. And and renouncing the belief that I won't be able to handle it if I look at it. And I am receiving the truth that you're with me in everything and that I can take your hand and we can walk through it together and I'll be safe.
Okay. Good. Excellent. So it's important when you do this kind of stuff. A lot of times people focus on the renouncing part of getting rid of it, but I think it's equally important to have something new that you're grabbing onto that's rooted in Jesus and what he says and who he is. So instead of saying, I can't handle it, the solution is in your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
So that resets your identity from being out here to being connected. So let me take a moment here again with those last two. We talked about the one before this was asking Jesus to tell you what to believe, and then the renounce and replace thing. Questions on those two? Mike says I asked 2 questions that weren't on the slide. I don't remember what they were. Maybe somebody else wrote them down and can type them in. Oh. So yeah, what do you want to hear more about on these 2 things, or the first 2 as well? Yeah, Myra, on the renouncing thing, we had already, you sort of already did that. So I just had you rehearse it, but we really, when Jesus spoke, she accepted the new thing, and yeah. But it does, sometimes for people, it really helps them to formally say, I let go of this old belief. I'm not going to have it anymore. Stating the new belief resets what? It resets your identity. What happens is we create beliefs where we define ourselves in terms of the world or what we can and can't do. And what we want to do is define our identity in terms of our relationship with God. So for instance, a really good example of a really bad identity statement would be, I'm never going to be like my dad. It's a vow, it's a stronghold, but it roots your identity in opposition to your father. And so it ties you to your father. And what you really want to say is, this isn't about my dad. I let go of defining myself in terms of my dad. Jesus, here's who you've called me to be. Mm-hmm. So then my identity is attached to God instead of to a person. So that's what we're attempting to do. Maintaining the new belief, Cindy asks. You got to practice it. One of the things I find is that when you take on a new belief, that God brings you a wonderful set of circumstances where you can practice. And sometimes I'll have the person ask and say, so Jesus, give me some chances to practice this. And I know you'll be nice to me, and I'm not afraid, but I need to practice operating out of this new belief. That's the dangerous prayer thing that we'll get into next. Clarify. Kara, did I answer your question? Clarify how the new belief is in relation to God? I'm not sure if that was after I explained that or before. Is there another way to say renounce and be let go of, or, do you want to believe that anymore? No. Yeah. Yeah, detach, disavow would be fine. How do you encourage someone who's not used to asking Jesus this big question right there with you? The way I do it is just really matter-of-factly. We're going to take a minute and ask Jesus this question, and whatever you see or hear or what comes in your mind, once we're done, just tell me what you've heard and we'll sort it out. And I don't make a big deal out of it. And it's just like, we're going to listen for a little bit and then just tell me what you got. So I find that some of this is the kind of people I work with, because I do work with mostly leaders, but I've done this with people in the airport who'd fallen away from God. So I just believe Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice. And I just choose to believe that. And I think when you believe that, that's where the 2 or 3 are gathered together thing comes into play. And it makes it really easy for people to hear it because there's faith in the room. So that's my answer to that. Yeah, Marissa, is saying the new belief enough? No, you do have to take action on it. But you'll have plenty of chances in your life.
Game on.
Yeah. And you can set up, if it's something where you need to be structured about it, like actually the 2 things we're going to do next are ways you can take action on it. So let me go into that. The wrong belief stems from an experience where you were hurt. Yeah, if with beliefs and emotional memories tend to form together. So often, today I'm just focusing on the beliefs process, but often when you go to the belief, one of the questions is, does it still hurt there or not? Because there's several possibilities. One is you're still wounded and you have the belief. So we probably need to deal with the wound before you can let go of the belief, because the belief is what's protecting you from getting wounded again. Another possibility with people is sometimes the wound will get healed over time in life, but the belief will remain. And when you get someone where the wound is mostly gone, but it's just the belief, then they have the capability to just undecide and it changes, because the belief isn't attached to anything. Strongholds are strong because the wound is really rooted into your psyche and it holds the belief to it. But when the belief gets taken away, or the wound gets taken away, the belief gets really weak. And usually the only way it can survive is to stay in the dark and be unknown. But when you bring it to the light like you did, and it's like, boy, that's stupid, then its days are numbered, because it's not very powerful without the wound. So So let me go on and touch these next two techniques. And the idea of a declaration is that you take a revelation and you repeat it so that you re-experience the force of the moment of revelation. And revelation, like when you get a rhema, the experience of hearing God, it builds faith in you. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the rhema of God. So when you get a rhema, you can go back to it over and over again. And that's like practicing the new belief and building it into you. So for a declaration, start with that revelation, and then how can you put that in the form of a statement that you can repeat?
Okay.
So if you were going to make a declaration about who you are in those situations where you're the old way would have been to avoid, or who God showed you that He is for you in that, what would you want to declare?
I think it would be that God is good and kind, and He's always with me.
Okay, and can you tie that a little closer into what He spoke to you in this session? Like maybe I can take His hand. Or...
Yeah. I can always take Jesus' hand. Or yeah.
If I face a challenge, I can take Jesus' hand. Or
yeah, maybe something about even when I feel like I don't know what to do, I know what to do because I can always take Jesus' hand.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's powerful for me, I think, because that feeling of I don't know what to do is what I experience. I feel like I experience that a lot, or that's familiar. So having something to say of like, okay, I feel like I don't know what to do, but I actually do.
Okay.
That feels powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a great declaration because it does two things. It has what your trigger thing is in it, and it also has the image in it that Jesus used to show you the new thing.
Yeah.
So really when I get triggered, here's my new revelation that I'm gonna slot into.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
That's good.
Let me just see quick if there's another question. How do you know the wound has been touched and healed? I would just ask people, when you go there, think about that place again. Does it still hurt? Or is it painful to go there? And if it is, then there's something there. And sort of the healing, my basic healing test is if your present behavior is influenced by past pain, then you need healing. If this hurt you and you're still skittish, you need healing. If this hurt you and every time it comes up you're afraid, that's a good healing thing. So here's the last one. This is my favorite.
Dangerous prayers.
So the idea of a dangerous prayer is that most of us approach change like it's our job. Okay, God showed me that I'm afraid or selfish or whatever it is, so I need to come up with a plan to change. And I think a better way to approach that is to say, okay, God showed me that I'm afraid in these situations. How has He been showing me? And what has He been doing to make it easier for me to see that? Because I want to assume that He's already been at work and that He has a strategy. And that my job isn't to change myself, but to find His strategy and then position myself alongside it. So in something here would be a very probable outcome of what happened today is that over the next 2 months there'll be a lot of little situations where you're like, wow, I'm in this place again. I'm in this place again.
Yeah.
And circumstances will put you there, and it will be an opportunity for the new belief to take hold in you. So you can endure that process, you can hate that process, or you can invite that process and say, I don't have to go out of here carrying the weight to change this. What I'm going to do is say, God, send me the experiences that I need to change this, and then meet me in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my responsibility to change me, it's your responsibility to keep working your strategy that brought me to this point in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of the idea behind dangerous prayers.
Yeah.
So what would help you, what could you ask, kind of experience could you ask for that would help you really make the switch into the new belief pattern?
Yeah. I guess something like, God, send me circumstances or experiences where I can learn how you're with me even when I don't know what to do or don't have an answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that'd be good.
Is that
Yeah,
too obvious? Or?
No, and you might tweak it just a little bit and say, God, send me circumstances where you can meet me and teach me that there's always another option, that I can take your hand.
Yeah.
That's good. And let the onus be on God and not on you.
Where you can teach me. Yes. Yeah.
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 Where you can meet me and where you can there's something you want to do in me that you're talking about. So how can I open myself up to you so you can do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that feel?
That feels good. Yeah.
Does it feel a little dangerous too?
It does. It does feel dangerous, but it also feels like that's what I know I want. And I think the other thing that feels good about it is the acknowledgement that he's in the process with me, and that's part of the avoidance that I haven't always known how to experience.
Yeah.
And so the part, like, teach me that you're always with me, I think that's what I really, really want to know is an experience. So,
okay.
Yeah,
good.
It's really good.
So now, here's the fun part for you. Whenever I talk about dangerous prayers for the first time with a group, sometimes what I'll do is say, okay, everybody, you just found I'll lead the group through a process of everyone finding a belief. And then I'll say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Take a minute and pray this prayer. Jesus, send me the circumstances that I need to change in this area. And usually a giant collective gasp goes up from the room because we tapped into another belief. And the reality is most Christians believe if they really open their life up to God that he would hurt them. And if you recoiled from the idea of asking God to send you circumstances, there's a belief like that behind it. So this is a great opportunity for you to look at that and say, okay, why did I experience that emotional response? What was going on in me? Where did I learn to believe this thing that God is going to hurt me? Do I want to keep that belief? You can go through these 6 tools that we worked at today and say, what am I going to do with this belief that God is not going to be gentle and kind with me, but he's going to hurt me? So there's a challenge going forward for you. So we got 5 more minutes. Thanks, Carissa.
Thank you.
That was great.
Thank you, everyone.
So let's take a bit here for questions and feedback and so forth. What do you want me to clarify? What do you have questions about? Is there anything you want to hear more about? Let's take a few minutes for that. That's a good, scary prayer, yes. But you can get to the point where it doesn't scare you. And where you can just say, yeah, I want God to do that. I want him to, if a little bit of pain now can deliver me from this thing I carried for 20 years, shoot, yes. How do you draw the line of going too far backward into the coachee's life? Just a quick thing on that. Coaching started in the business world where it really wasn't very appropriate to talk about people's past or their healing issues or a bunch of things. And so the coaching profession created some boundaries that said, here are places we don't go. I work mostly in the ministry context, and in the ministry world, we go to these places all the time. It's part of what we're supposed to be about. So there's no artificial boundary between the past and the future. And I think the coaching approach applies just as well to the past as it does to the present or the future. Now, if I have, there are things that are not coachable, like if the person's addicted to drugs, that's not a coaching issue, that's a drug rehab issue. If the person is curled up in a fetal position on the floor and can't move, you can only coach someone about something where they can take responsibility and make decisions and move forward. But I think you can coach anything like that, past, present, or future. So anyway, if somebody wants to come back at me more on that, that's fine. Let's see. Some beliefs are culturally rooted. How do you work through them? Often, a culture is one source of truth. I coached a guy once who was in Asia. He was a pastor. He was a full-time pastor. He had another full-time job with a U.S. military base, and he was planning 2 other churches at the same time. His life was total insanity. And I remember the day we were talking about this, and he told me about the one time in his life where he had said no to a need. And he was so ashamed that someone had called him with a ministry need, and it was the night before his final paper for one of his graduate degrees was due. And it was 11 o'clock, and somebody wanted him to come and counsel them, and he said no. And in his culture, to do that was really wrong. And I said, well, think about that for a minute. Can you think of any places where Jesus said no to a need? And all of a sudden it occurred to him that Jesus had said no to the Syrophoenician woman, and he had said no to, and he realized that he had a choice. And it was a life-changing event for him, but it came when we juxtaposed another source of truth against what his culture said in a way that he could really examine his belief. So that's looking at that question. Is this in the book? Yes. The invitation book covers working with desires, working with beliefs and emotional memories, covers drilling down to desires and beliefs and emotional memories. It includes the heart model and all the stuff behind this. So this is sort of my Coaching the Heart Manifesto book. So I'm really excited about it. How can I look at the first 5 tools again? The best way would be in the book, because there you'll have a whole description of them and some exercises and stuff. A dangerous prayer in my life and what you experienced when you did it. It's become enough of a thing that I do that I don't really remember exactly what I did. But I often pray, God, do in me the things I can't do myself. That's a common prayer for me. So yeah, I don't know if I can, in this moment, pin you down on a specific thing that happened, but I've just gotten comfortable with it, that God is good to me, and that if I ask him for a fish, he's not going to give me a stone, and he's not going to put coal in my stocking at Christmas, and I can trust him. So, release date for the book, mid-March. You can pre-order it now if you want. Bitter root judgment. I mean, I've got the idea of root of bitterness things. There are similarities in this with inner healing methodologies. And I've drawn particularly some from Theophostics in the idea that what sticks with you about a wound is not even so much the wound, but what you believe about it is a concept that I got out of that. But I'm taking some areas like that and using a coaching approach with them, and particularly an approach where we're inviting people into a conversation with Jesus as opposed to giving them advice or telling them what they should pray or that kind of thing. Yeah, you could talk to Cindy about dangerous prayers. Yeah. Anybody else question or comment before we wrap up here? Thanks, Kelly. I think there's some areas of coaching where, since it sort of was a poured over from the secular arena, that we haven't really thought through. For instance, a whole nother area is, if you want to really think about this, is most coaching approaches are helping you create a better life in the here and now, and are aimed at making you happy in the here and now. That's really not a biblical goal. So how do you coach a person toward eternity and not toward temporal success or temporal happiness? Another thing is, biblically, suffering is a part of life, and filling up the sufferings of Christ is part of what a disciple does. That's sort of incompatible with some of the coaching approaches that say, if there's anything in life that causes you pain, get rid of it, even if it hurts somebody else. So there's some things about the coaching movement that we need to take a step back and more fundamentally look at. The full training for this is the Meta Formation classes, meta-formation.com, and we have a ball. Every one of those courses starts with a 90-minute taste of heaven experience with actors and staging and lighting, and one has ballet. But what we do is take the group and bless you to the point of embarrassment to open up your hearts, and then we use that experience to unpack the heart, because anything that's working with the heart, the language of the heart is experience much more than words and concepts. So if you want to work with the heart, you've got to build experience into your training. Margaret says these courses are amazing. Her story's in the first chapter of my book. So if you want to read about Margaret, that God smiled at her, that's in there too. So thanks for joining me today. And if you want to know more, look at the website or feel free and shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. Thanks.